what are the other alternatives to proof of work?
Sure. So the nature of blockchain that makes it really exciting to everybody is its trustful nature, and that comes from having many different nodes, thousands of nodes around the world, all having direct access to the data and uniquely on Ethereum, the programs. In order to keep them all in sync, you have something called a consensus formation algorithm. In order for these algorithms to work, you basically need to elect a leader who finds a solution and then proposes that solution to the whole network, and then the network, via economic incentives, falls in line with the leader. The current Bitcoin and Ethereum consensus formation algorithm uses something called proof of work to identify that leader, and in both cases it involves, in Bitcoin's case, buying custom hardware, paying a ton, and Ethereum also now paying a ton for electricity and buying expensive rigs. And so there's an element of centralization, which is unfortunate. And as the questioner indicated, there's a tremendous amount of waste. You're solving a silly, useless cryptographic puzzle. You're wasting electricity, you're wasting compute cycles. So it would be nice if we could find something that had the same sort of guarantees with respect to security, etc., but was relatively inexpensive. And so right from the start of the Ethereum project, we intended to do proof of stake, but we didn't have a certain mechanism that we could rely on. There were proof of stake algorithms out there, but they all had flaws. So proof of work requires doing a tremendous amount of work to have the right to be that leader. Proof of stake replaces all of that waste with the posting of a security bond in the form of Ether on a smart contract, a program basically on Ethereum. So it's far less wasteful. Within a handful of months, we're going to come out with a hybrid proof of work, proof of stake system. There needs to be a graceful transition between the proof of work system and a full proof of stake system, because there are a lot of people who've invested a lot in order to process transactions and keep the network secure. And so shutting them off on day one of proof of stake both and also potentially problematic for Ethereum, because a lot of those people would probably continue to collect money on this other blockchain system called Ethereum, but not the proof of stake Ethereum. And so there will be a gradual transition. Yes, it sure does look like it works. There's been a lot of proofs of concept worked on, and it looks like the issues are largely worked out.
Congratulations first on the growth of Ethereum. So recently China banned most of the token sales. How do you see it evolving, Ethereum evolving with the China news, and also when the upcoming forking of Ether is going to be a third cryptocurrency similar to ETC and ETH after the proof of stake? How do you see the network evolving?
So taking the second one first, do I think that there will be a continued Ethereum proof of work chain? I think probably somebody's going to want to do that in our space. We've seen so many opportunists jump on a way of making a decent amount of money, perhaps for a short period of time. There is this thing called the difficulty bomb, which is going to render Ethereum difficult or useless to use if there isn't a transition to this proof of stake system via a hard fork. It's possible that a group organizes and creates their own hard fork, getting rid of that difficulty bomb and keeping proof of work. So one of the beauties of our ecosystem is that lots of different groups with different philosophies or agendas can experiment in different ways, and we'll see that almost certainly. So China, a few days ago, basically declared a pause in token launches in their country, and typically they do those things in the vaguest of ways to try to just create a pall, just a an atmosphere of fear so that everybody is frozen. It is our estimation that this is going to be very short term and designed to A, stop the enormous number of ridiculous fraudulent token launches that have been happening in that country, and B, to sort of get a little bit better control of that ecosystem, because apparently they like to be in this.
So you talked earlier about...
Can you speak really loudly?
Yeah. You talked earlier about this portable ID that will be accessible by anyone in theory. But if you're talking about helping underserved populations create this ID, there's like this infrastructure problem with getting the internet to begin with. So how do you think that would work, and like how does that affect the actual accessibility of this system?
Yeah, so we can't do everything, so we're not necessarily going to be responsible for putting smartphones or kiosks in the hands of 7.4 billion people. But we'll do what we can to work with groups that can do that. The way these systems are designed, a very inexpensive smartphone will be able to access the U-port identity system, or if there's a kiosk that's accessible by a number of people, you'll be able to establish your identity on there and then log out when you're done. And definitely a last mile infrastructure question that we don't yet have a good answer to.
There was an earlier session on quantum computing, and given how much research they have done, do you see that as a threat to blockchain in the near future?
Yeah, so quantum computers are computers that many believe will be able to solve cryptographic problems, break codes, which would be devastating to blockchain systems. Quantum computers are really, really far away from being capable of solving any real-world problems. Ethereum is moving to modular signature schemes. So you're going to be able to designate which signatures would be required for certain kinds of transactions. A few months from now, you'll be able to designate that the Lamport signature would be required, which is quantum computing or Shor's and Grover's algorithm impervious. So Ethereum's not worried about that stuff. And also, cryptography shouldn't be worried about that stuff, because cryptography is sort of defined many years ahead of time, and so there will be real quantum computers that could affect codes currently in use. Probably won't be available for 15 years, maybe more. So there will be plenty of warning, and unless the NSA is already 20 years ahead of us, which is maybe possible. So it's really not a concern as we understand it.
Do you see fintech moving into this space? And if so, in what timeline and to what extent?
Let's see, what moving in?
Fintech, so peer-to-peer lending and that kind of initiative.
Yeah, in a big way. So there will be lending platforms. There will be just an enormous number of fintech projects. It's already happening.
So I understand that like banks, Citibank, they're trying to create their own coin now, or at least experimenting with their own coin. How do you think that'll affect the future of Bitcoin and Ethereum? And I don't know if I'm right when I phrase this, but are they using the same blockchain as what you guys are using?
So I'm not sure what Citibank is doing, but we're going to see a qualitative change in the nature of money, in the nature of value tokens, where many nation states issue their own, and there's some other systems, and so you've got hundreds or thousands of these things in the world. We're going to see situations where we issue tokens for a party, shared payment to the party, admission, etc. You could issue a token. If you're a particularly bright individual, you could say, I'm going to issue, what's your name?
Raphael.
A Raphael token. The Raphael token will collect $5 million from people who believe in you. You'll pay off your student loans, and you'll pay revenues from your first 3 startups to the people that buy that token. So these things are going to be everywhere. These tokens, we're going to tokenize resources. We have a project where we're tokenizing kilowatt hours. So the nature of money will change. States will continue to issue their own money. They'll move some of that, some forms to blockchain. I don't think they'll get rid of paper money necessarily anytime soon. And city and many other entities will be able to issue their own tokens of value for different reasons. All these systems may end up being interoperable. We at Consensys have built a glue technology that glues the Ethereum blockchain to the Bitcoin blockchain, and we can validate transactions on Bitcoin from a smart contract on Ethereum. We're working to glue private permission versions of Ethereum to the public Ethereum now, and if Citibank wants to, we could create a bi-directional validation mechanism to their system. So we could actually freeze some city tokens on their blockchain and reissue them as Ethereum-based city tokens.
With the ICO ban in China, do you see this as kind of being a gateway to other places such as Japan and the US doing kind of pause policies to get a sense of the scene, or do you think that you interpret this as a China issue?
Yeah, so I don't have much insight into the thinking of leaders in different countries, especially this country. But we saw the SEC issue a report, and it was a very favorable report. It was exactly what our legal team has expected and interpreted the DAO to be. Importantly, the SEC said that they would continue to look at the details of every situation. They aren't throwing out the baby with the bathwater. I like the fact that they called Ether a cryptocurrency in that particular report, designating that as a category rather than a security. So the United States is doing a pretty good job of being patient, which is what you need to do with a profound new technology. And the United States did a great job of being patient and creating safe harbors for a technology called the internet or the World Wide Web. And it could be argued that the USA won that particular battle.
So these are just a few quick questions. The first one is, how many transactions are currently being done, let's say, per minute, per day, whatever metric you want, right now?
I think it's 400 million on the Ethereum blockchain average on a daily basis.
Okay. And the scale that you described this getting to, where countries are issuing it, and it's a worldwide phenomenon, right?
Is Ethereum scalable ever?
How would you scale to that? And then after that one, just how would you get that down to 4 seconds?
How would we get that done?
To 4 seconds
Down
per
to 4
transaction.
seconds? Yeah, so element one of scalability is that miners can vote to increase the size of blocks. That's a mechanism that's just starting to be used because it's just starting to be necessary. Element number 2 is state channels. So you can do a tremendous amount of work off the blockchain where you initialize an interaction on the blockchain, you produce an escrow into a smart contract, and then you can finalize it on the blockchain. But you can just move signed transactions out of band for as long as you want. And so this enables basically something like accessing Wi-Fi from a cafe. Right, go in, I set up the transaction, click on start, escrow some money in the smart contract that was put there by the cafe owner, and then every minute the interface keeps sending a new signed transaction, giving that cafe owner more control over the escrowed money. So that's a huge mechanism that's starting to be used on Ethereum applications. We're moving to proof of stake, as we discussed. Proof of stake will give us about 1.5 orders of magnitude in transaction throughput gains. So move us up to around 200, 300 transactions per second. Beyond that, and again, a bunch of proof of concepts have been built. We're moving from one Ethereum blockchain to initially 80 sharded Ethereum blockchains. These shards will be kept consistent via a couple of different mechanisms, basically cryptographic receipts and Merkle proofs. And so in current blockchain systems, any blockchain system, basically. If you add new compute, you increase the security of the network, but you reduce the transactional throughput on the network just a tiny bit because you've got more overhead costs. When you shard a network, you can add a whole bunch of compute and create a new shard, and you're quasi-linearly increasing transaction throughput. That will get us to infinite scalability if we have infinite compute to add to that network. Proof of stake takes us down to about 4 seconds, we believe. And we'll be able to get do much better than that over time. Let's go way back.
For those of us who are already working with traditional internet technologies, do you have any advice on how to begin working with blockchain or on the Ethereum platform?
Yeah, there's a ton of material out there, written tutorials, etc. If you want formal training, we're doing some of that at Consensys Academy. If you're a really hot developer, just join our company. We'll spin you up pretty quickly. But it's all out there. There's another, so one of our guys runs something called Decipher TV, DECYPHER.TV. And Consensys doesn't make any money out of it. He makes a little bit of money, but really great quality tutorials also.
Vitalik said recently that crypto as a whole is in a bubble, and the value obviously is fluctuating like crazy right now. Can you speak to how that's going to develop in the future, when it might stabilize, when it might, become clearer how the value system works?
So that last part's hard, but yeah, crypto's in a massive bubble. It's going to keep blowing bubbles, bigger and bigger bubbles. The bubbles will grow, creating a lot of value for people who care about building fundamental infrastructure for the ecosystem. That value will be brought down here to grow fundamental elements, businesses, etc., so that when this bubble pops, it sort of drops down to this level to where the infrastructure supports it, and we get another irrationally exuberant bubble that takes us another 10x higher than the previous bubble. People build a whole lot more stuff. It's the fear and greed cycle, basically, that we can't get away from, and it's going to, Bitcoin for a long time was 99% speculation, and it's starting to be fundamental. Ethereum, both of them are 90-something% speculative value right now. But this speculative value makes a lot of sense to a lot of smart people around the world, because if you really understand the technology, you will probably come to the conclusion that every information system on the planet will be realized with this kind of technology soon enough.
Can I ask just a really short question, follow up on directly on that?
Follow-up.
Why does the value of the Ethereum token have to go up? Even if, let's say everyone adopts Ethereum, why does the token have to cost so much? It doesn't seem directly connected.
So, unlike Bitcoin, or similar to Bitcoin, I guess, but the Ethereum token, a protocol token, pays for computation and storage on the Ethereum network, and computation and storage currently is finite. It may grow infinite, but it's always going to be bigger and bigger and finite. And so if you have a limited number of these value tokens, and there are a lot of them out there, but it's simply supply and demand. If a lot of users of the technology, developers of the technology, and speculators about the future of the technology want this stuff, it's going to grow in value. And as we build more and more global infrastructure on this platform, people are going to need that stuff to do things like pay for reputational attestations from your bank, or pay to play on the Virtue Poker platform. So it's kind of like Amazon credits. You want to use Amazon, you got to buy those credits. Currently there's an infinite number of Amazon credits that they will sell you, but that's not the case for Ethereum.
If I was from Standard & Poor's, and
when I came and said that we're going to start giving ratings to crypto tokens, what type of advice would you give me?
I think that'd be great. So we're trying to do the same thing. Other groups are trying to do the same thing. We absolutely need a lot of self-regulation in this space. We need a lot of analysts helping naive token buyers understand what projects are crap and what projects might be pretty decent. It's you got to walk. You got to be careful, basically, because you don't want to be unregistered and seem to be providing investment advice. But I think a scan yes or no service would be pretty valuable.
Based on the fund that you recently created, what do you expect and hope to see has been created?
So we recently formed a venture capital fund, $50 million venture arm of Consensys, basically. We built a process at Consensys by which we mature our many internal projects. But there are many projects that come to us or that we just see out in the world that wouldn't really be appropriate to take in-house at Consensys. And so when we identified projects in the space that don't want to be part of Consensys for whatever reason, or are complementary technologies that we can't directly affect positively, those are appropriate for investment by our fund. So just it's very early in the first inning for this technology, and many different approaches need to be explored. The solution space is vast, and so we're just trying to support people who are exploring that solution space.
I just listened to an interview with the founders or the guys that are doing the token for this thing called 0x, which is like a protocol for decentralized trading.
Yeah.
And it was really exciting to me because right now the only way you can trade these things is on these centralized exchanges, which are really shady. Can you talk, or maybe not shady, but you hear about well, you can't put fiat into some of them, and that's a real problem. And I think it's potentially really exciting for see so much arbitrage potential out there. Just can you talk about what the next few years look like in terms of trading?
Yeah, and so they're all more shady and more vulnerable than a smart contract that implements atomic swap.
Atomic swap is the
0x is a protocol built by some really smart guys to enable basically that. You can be guaranteed that the software will mediate your transaction. You want to move from token A to token B. They both get moved into a smart contract and they both get released. Or with the second one, the guy gets cold feet, you get your token back after a period of time. So we've actually got another project called Swap, which does the same thing.
Okay.
These are going to be very exciting technologies. We're not going to see centralized exchanges go away anytime soon because they provide higher frequency trading. There are many different kinds of use cases in trading of tokens. The swap technologies will do a great job on some early, slower use cases. A project built on state channels called Raiden is going to enable something called RaidX, which is, we think, going to be a faster, decentralized exchange protocol. Lots of very exciting decentralized token exchange platforms coming. And RaidX, as it matures, has the potential to be able to trade or enable the swapping of all value tokens on Ethereum. And we're seeing a world.
Got only about another question or two, so you're lucky. You got a little longer.
We're seeing a world where we believe we're moving to having everything realized as a value token. So there may be a future in which centralized exchanges are not necessary anymore.
That's exciting.
What, if any, are some of the ways any regulatory bodies might clamp down on crypto in general in the U.S.? Like the Fed?
So they're going to clamp down on suspicious activity, I believe. I think it's clear enough that this technology is valuable, and it's not something to be shut down wholesale. The United States has jurisdiction over Federal Reserve notes, and at the boundaries between the blockchain ecosystem and the American financial ecosystem, the American authorities are in control. So they can KYC you or force KYCing and maintain a decent amount of control in that way. They're not going to be able to affect that much control in the pure protocol.
So this is probably not that much of a technical question, but I work for a consultancy, and we've actually worked with Venture, Omega, and one of the biggest problems that they've had is branding. How do they form a legitimate image in public? How do you see, I guess, the future or the image of Ethereum and all the services there? How would you like it to go? Like how can you be legitimate? Yeah, as the public and the institution.
I guess it's a slow, long-term project, which we're working on all day, every day. And so I would like to see Ethereum be seen as a decentralized infrastructure for economic, social, and political systems on the planet, and a world computer. That sounds a little bit nerdy, so for people who care about blockchain, that's where I would go. But I also think nobody's going to care about blockchain in the general population. They're just going to care about the World Wide Web, and so all of the different projects that we're building and enabling should do their own marketing.
I'm most fascinated with how blockchain Ethereum applications can help the bottom end of the socioeconomic class, like people that are already kind of dislodged from the monetary system in general. And I know Uport, obviously you guys are doing like self-sovereign identities for refugees and things, of people that have no identities. But in like kind of the local New York space, which is where Consensys is based, how is blockchain, or really just Ethereum and Consensys applications, able to help some of the 50,000 maybe homeless and people that have no attachment to the monetary system already? And how does it help them get identity and also some more voice than maybe they normally would get? And I guess also with that question, do you think that Consensys and Ethereum will help catalyze UBI, and do you believe in UBI, and do you think that it's beneficial?
Yeah, so we do have a social impact group, and they look at a lot of projects. We're not configured to provide services to 50,000 homeless or unidentified people. We're a software development company. Let me jump to UBI. I think it's going to be a very important system going forward. We're thinking quite a lot about it. We have many different ways of creating value or suggesting to people that we help create value to break off slices of that value and put it into the input funnel of the UBI system. And we have a delivery mechanism for it in the form of Uport. So if we set up kiosks and enable anybody to establish their own self-sovereign identity, and we expect that UBI will be interesting to lots of people, but not everybody, and not everybody should pull value from that system. So if you're interested in pulling value from that system, we're going to do some early experiments where you'll be able to get a little bit of value that comes in through token launches, that comes in through a loyalty program that we're building out for businesses in the New York and other areas. So we're working on the inputs. We think we have the mechanism of delivery, and it's going to start small, and we'll try to find different islands of activity where we can establish it.
So there's obviously been tremendous interest in the blockchain technology, but thinking 10, 20 years ahead, right? Like in your ideal situation, first of all, what is that? And then second, what are the roadblocks to get in there?
Yeah, there's no way I can predict what's going to go on 10 or 20 years ahead, but
I guess the ideal application.
All right, let's give a big round of applause.